long before the hum of electricity, before glowing screens and buzzing alarms. The night held a different rhythm. In the winding lanes of medieval villages, beneath thatched roofs and stone towers, sleep came slowly, and strangely, tonight we travel back to a world where people didn't sleep in one long stretch, where dreams were shared and bedtime was sacred, a time when bells told you when to rest, when herbs whispered you into slumber, and sleep came not just once, but twice. Close your eyes, let the weight of the day fall away, and drift with us into the quiet, forgotten world of how medieval people truly slept. Long ago, before the world was lit with lamps and screens, night fell fast and deep. The sun would sink behind rolling fields. Shadows stretched over stone walls and forests, and people stopped working, stopped moving, stopped talking. In the 1300s, in a quiet village, the people knew it was time to rest. There were no clocks to chase, no glowing phones, only the sky and the rising hush of evening. They lit tallow candles, pulled thick wool over straw mattresses, said quiet prayers, and let silence settle like snow. This was the beginning of the first sleep. But sleep didn't come all at once. It drifted in, soft as dust on a windowsill. Some might whisper in bed, children giggle under blankets. A mother hums to a baby by the hearth. Slowly, breath slows, lids grow heavy, limbs fall still, sleep begins its descent. In most homes, families shared one room, and often one bed. A peasant family might lie shoulder to shoulder, father, mother, children, warmed by each other's sips breath. Beneath the bed, a dog or a pig might snore softly. Above them, the roof creaked in the wind. Outside, night creatures stirred in the brush. The mattress was stuffed with straw or feathers if they were lucky. Sheets were linen, blankets, wool, the bedposts, rough-hewn oak. There was no luxury here, but there was quiet, a stillness we sit forgotten. Now, imagine yourself lying there, in that bed, in that time. The firelight dances across the wall. You can hear someone breathing beside you. Eusebi eaten a warm meal. The air smells faintly of smoke, of earth, of rosemary hung above the door. And slowly, you begin to drift. Not rushed, not pulled, just carried into that first sleep. Let go. Let your mind wander. Let the weight of the day disappear. This is only the beginning of the night. You are now entering a world where sleep doesn't come just once. A world where dreams arrive, then pause, then return. The world of two sleeps. First sleep began soon after nightfall, perhaps at 8 or 9 in the evening. This sleep was deep, slow, quiet. People sank into it without resistance. The body cooled, the mind softened. Medieval doctors believed this part of the night was for healing. When the body repaired itself from the labor of the day, there were no bedside lamps, no screens, only the dark. And in that dark, sleep arrived like mist, covering every thought, every ache, every breath. Dreams came, but they were simple. Soft echoes of the day just past. A cart rolling down a hill, the warmth of soup on a cold tongue, the creak of a gate in the wind. Ambient, very soft breathing, light wind outside the cottage, occasional wood creak. There was no pressure to stay asleep for hours, no guilt about waking in the night. The first sleep was natural, brief, enough to take the edge off fatigue. And somewhere around midnight, eyes would open again, not startled, not alarmed, just gently awake. The fire has dimmed, the world outside is silent, and so begins the hour in between. A time forgotten by modern memory, but once cherished, the time between the two sleeps. The hour is somewhere between midnight and 2. A strange time by today, SIP's standards, but not in the medieval world. Here, in the space between two sleeps, people often rose gently from bed, not hurried, not afraid, just awake. A man might stir the hearth back to life. A woman might stretch and sip warm ale. They called this hour the watching, a time for small, quiet things. Some used it to pray, to reflect, to read scripture if they were literate, or simply to sit in silence. The home remained dim, lit by a glowing ember or flickering candle. Children murmured in their sleep. The dog turned once and settled again. This wakeful period was not considered insomnia, but part of the night sept's design, a gift of stillness, a pause for thought. Neighbors might visit quietly, or couples speak in whispers. In wealthier homes, letters were written. In monasteries, monks chanted their vigils. This hour, once normal, has nearly vanished from our memory, but it held peace and space to breathe, to think, to simply be, in the dark. Eventually, without prompting, the second sleep would call, and they would lie back down. No alarm needed, just trust in the rhythm of night. Between first sleep and second sleep lies a mysterious realm, a space where waking and dreaming blurred, where stories from the mind lingered longer. In the medieval world, dreams were not distractions, they were messages. To dream vividly in the wakeful hour was common. Some believed these dreams came from God, others thought them visions from the spirit world, dreams of lost loved ones, of warnings, of blessings. People shared their dreams aloud, in hushed voices, over flickering flames. They wrote them in journals, if they could write. They sought meanings in scripture or folk wisdom. Dreams were not judged quickly. They were studied, pondered, even feared. And this moment, this pause between sleeps, was when those dreams were strongest. Not buried in deep slumber, but fresh, hovering, vivid. The priest dreamed of angels, the shepherd of wolves, the widow of her husband's hand reaching, and all of them returned to bed with those dreams lingering, like mist in the corners of the mind. This was not a broken night, but a layered one. Sleep, wake, dream, reflect, sleep again. A sacred rhythm, forgotten by time. As the embers glowed faintly, and the last candle guttered out, the bed called once more. No alarm was needed, no worry about hours lost or hours ahead, just a slow return to the second sleep. This sleep was different, not as deep as the first, but sweeter, softer. It was filled with more dreams, more colours, more strange scenes that floated in and out, like clouds across a moonlit sky. People might drift in and out of slumber. They would hear the wind shift, feel the presence of morning drawing near, but not rise just yet. There was time for the body to rest just a little more, for the spirit to wander. This was the sleep that gently carried them to the dawn, not jolting, but like a tide, rolling in softly. Farmers would sleep until the rooster crowed, bakers perhaps, until the dough was ready, and monks, until the bell called them back to prayer. Second sleep was the quiet finish, the last chapter of the night's journey, and though many would forget their dreams, they woke with a calm, deep and old, rooted in the rhythm of the earth. Soon the sky would lighten, and the world would turn again. But for now, the second sleep held them, soft, safe, still, and then the light returned. Slowly, softly, a pale blue light crept across the floorboards. The coals in the hearth glowed red. The air was cold and new. People stirred, not with panic or alarms, but with the gentle knowing that morning had come. They sat on the edge of beds, stretched slowly, yawned into their hands. The second sleep lifted like fog from the mind. In towns and villages, roosters called to one another. Bells rang from distant towers, doors creaked open, and life began again. There was bread to bake, animals to feed, markets to tend, but there was no rush, because the night had done its work. 2 sleeps had restored body and mind. People remembered fragments of dreams, a face, a voice, a strange field of stars. They didn't worry about sleep schedules or hours counted. They trusted the rhythm of light and dark, of sleep and wake, of first rest and second dreams. This was the medieval morning, woven with silence, memory, and gentle purpose. And so we leave that world behind, a world with no buzzing alarms, no midnight scrolling, no fear of waking up at night. Only the quiet comfort of knowing that sleep would return again, in 2 parts, as it always once did. Close your eyes, back in time, and let us drift to a world before bedrooms, before doors with locks, before the idea that a bed belonged to just one. Privacy was rare in the medieval night, and sleep was shared. A wooden table, a cottage stood at the edge of a worn, muddy path. Inside, a single room, dimly lit by a flickering fire. A single bed, if the family was fortunate. A few chairs. And that bed? It was not for one. It was for all. Mother, father, children. Sometimes a cousin passing through. They didn't think it strange. Even a farmhand, if the weather turned cruel. They didn't call it crowded. It was simply how it was. The bed was made of rough wood, wool layered over linen. Its mattress, stuffed with straw or feathers if they were lucky. Blankets were thick and scratchy, heavy but warm. People slept shoulder to shoulder, back to back, face to feet. No quilts, just for show. There were no pillow-top mattresses, breathing softly in the dark. Only the comfort of another human being, close by. In this world, the night didn't isolate. It united. Sleep wasn't private. It was communal. Even today, you can feel it. A shared experience woven into the rhythm of life. Somewhere in the quiet hum of your own room, the echo of a time when sleep was shared. So lie still. We sipped Only Just Begun and listened to the warmth of history. In the still heart of the countryside, there stood a one-room cottage. The walls were wattle and daub, the roof thatched and low, a small fire. Inside, a simple life. A rough-hewn table, and in the far corner, the bed. A chest for bread. A large, boxy wooden frame, squeaky and handmade, packed with straw, covered in linen. Blankets piled high, sometimes damp with fog, sometimes itchy with hay, not as a title. It was called the family bed, but as a truth, because the whole family slept there. At one end, the parents, eyes heavy from long days, tired from the fields, hands cracked with work. In the middle, the children, squirming, giggling, feet kicking, heads turning, sometimes too cold, sometimes too warm. Sometimes a baby slept in a cradle beside the bed. Other times, tucked between siblings. There were no bedrooms, no cribs, no bedtime routines, just closeness, soft breath, the comfort of togetherness. Sometimes, not everyone fit, so a bench was used, or the hearth became a place to rest. The oldest child might curl under the table, or a grandmother might sleep in a chair. The farmhand rested on a pile of straw, in the hayloft above, wrapped in an old cloak, listening to mice rustle through the beams, because the house was full, and yet there was no loneliness. With the sounds of rest, the hush of shared dreams, the warmth of breath, they did not ask for space. They did not wish for silence. They slept the way they lived, together. Imagine that straw bed, as you lie still tonight, filled with the soft weight of family, and drift, deeper, into the shared sleep of simpler days. The road was long, and travel was slow. A journey that might take us hours today took medieval travelers days, or even weeks, winding across cold fields, muddy tracks, and deep woods. By nightfall, the feet were sore, the face windburned, the bones aching, and so they came to the inn. A crooked timber building, leaning slightly under the weight of old winters. Its windows glowed faintly with candlelight, and smoke curled from the chimney. Inside, warmth, the scent of stew, the softness of firelight, and, if you were lucky, a bed. Beds were shared. No, but not a bed to yourself. It was expected. And mattresses. Expensive. Space was precious. The day has ended. The sun has dipped behind the hills, and shadows stretch long across worn cobblestone paths. In the stillness of a medieval evening, homes settle into silence. A single candle glows, its flame steady, warm, throwing soft light onto carved bedposts and heavy blankets. But the beds in this world are not like ours. They sit high from the floor, tall, framed in thick wood, more like sitting chairs than places to lie. And in these beds, people do not recline all the way. They do not lie flat. They sit, half reclined, propped against pillows, bolsters, even walls. Because to lie flat was to come too close to death. It was a quiet fear, a practical one. Lying flat was for the sick, for the dying, for the dead. A body laid flat was a body at rest forever. So those who still lived slept upright, just enough to breathe easy, to remain in the world, to keep the soul from slipping too far. Picture a woman, her hair braided in the dim firelight. She pulls a wool blanket to her chest and sits back against a bundle of pillows. The bed creaks. The air smells of dried lavender and wood smoke. Her husband stirs beside her, half-seated as well. They speak only once, a soft goodnight, and then the silence returns. Not flat, not fallen, just resting, ready to dream, but not to vanish. This was the beginning of the night, a time for seated stillness, for breath and reflection. No rush, no urgency. Sleep would come gradually, not as a plunge, but as a drift, with eyes half closed, bodies half lying, souls half dreaming. Tonight, you too may rest, with your back against softness, a pillow beneath your shoulders, and your breath slow and safe. Because before sleep was about sinking, it was about sitting and staying close to life. Imagine now, you are standing in the corner of a quiet medieval home. The room is dim, lit only by firelight and a stub of candle on the wall. Everything is still. Everything is slow. In the center, not far from the hearth, stands a great wooden bed, but it doesn't look like the ones we know. It stands high off the ground. Its headboard is tall and carved. Its sides are boxed in, almost like walls. And pillows, so many pillows, are stacked behind soft backs. This isn't set to just a bed. It sets a throne, a chair, a fortress of warmth. In the Middle Ages, the bed was a piece of furniture meant for more than sleeping. People read in it, prayed in it, received guests while sitting up in it. It was not a private place. It was a shared one, public even. And so it was designed for presence, to be seen upright, to be heard while seated, to sit with dignity even in nightclothes. The propped-up posture wasn't just fear of death. It was custom. It was comfort. It was built into the very shape of the furniture. Some beds had arms, like chairs. Others had benches built into the frame. All were made for sleeping like you were watching the world from above. A man might rest his back against a cushioned board, his legs stretched out, but his chest still upright. A woman might tuck her knees close, her shoulders supported by a rolled cloak. In castles, servants adjusted pillows before sleep. In cottages, families leaned on each other. Nobody expected to lie flat. They weren't sit slumped, they weren't sit stiff. They were arranged, tucked in like scrolls in a chest. And so, sleep came. In this seated stillness, the world outside was cold, but inside this tall wooden chairbed, there was peace, there was presence, and there was breath. Tonight, if you find yourself leaning back, instead of lying down, know that once, that was the way of sleep. A seated hush, a quiet drift, a throne for dreams. When you sleep sitting up, your body doesn't fall far, and neither does your mind. Sleep stays light, close to the surface, like a feather floating on water. And in this shallow slumber, dreams come differently, not buried deep within the dark, but just beneath the skin of thought, drifting in and out, like mist beneath the moon. In the medieval world, dreams were not distractions. They were messages, whispers from God, or warnings from spirits, echoes of the day, or glimpses of things yet to come. And sleeping upright made those whispers easier to hear. The line between waking and sleeping blurred. The candle still flickered behind closed eyes. The warmth of the room lingered in the vision. You were not lost in dreams. You hovered beside them. You could feel the bed, hear the fire, and still, somehow see the sky turn red, or a long-lost face appear. or a river run backwards through time. Some monks spoke of visions in that half-sleep. Prophets claimed to see angels while seated in prayer, and ordinary people dreamed of gardens, animals, storms, stars. They woke, not confused, but calmed. Their dreams hadn't taken them far, only a little ways, to the edge of night, and back. You too may know this space. That floating moment, just before your head tips, when the world is silent, and your mind is no longer fully yours. That is where they slept. Eyes closed, backs straight, dreams dancing just within reach. Not hidden, not lost, only lightly held, like candlelight, on the edge of dawn. In the Middle Ages, health and sleep were closely tied. Not just how long you rested, but how you rested, and posture mattered. To lie flat, they believed, was to tempt illness. Medieval physicians warned, too much lying down could cause the vapors to rise, or let phlegm gather in the chest, or slow digestion to a crawl. So they recommended elevation. Pillows were not for softness, they were for safety. The upright sleeper could breathe more easily, cough less, avoid choking, let the belly settle after the evening's stew or wine. And for those who were ill, sleep came only when propped up. In sick rooms across Europe, chairs were lined with cushions, beds angled with bolsters, blankets were folded behind backs and shoulders. This was medicine, a quiet kind, rooted in instinct and experience. Even today, doctors may ask us to sleep upright when we are ill, to help the lungs, to ease the stomach, to support the heart. They didn't know the words for REM cycles or sleep apnea, but they knew what worked. They observed, they adjusted, they listened to the body. The upright sleeper didn't always choose to sleep that way. Sometimes they had to, but in doing so, they found a rhythm, a way to rest that balanced breath and blood, fire and air, humor and heart. So tonight, if you find yourself stacking an extra pillow, or leaning back just a bit more, know that this is ancient, a wisdom passed down through countless midnights and countless healers' sipped hands. Sleep doesn't always mean lying flat. Sometimes it means holding yourself gently, upright, aware, at peace. In the stillness of the medieval night, the world didn't sleep completely. It listened. The wind moved through shutters. The fire popped in the hearth. A baby might cry. A dog might stir. And so, people didn't sleep fully either. They slept upright, so they could respond, so they could rise if needed. In a farmhouse, a mother sat in bed, propped with pillows, ready to hush a restless child, or stoke the fire if the chill crept in. In a keep, a guard dozed with his back against stone, not lying down, but resting, ready. In monasteries, monks slept upright in their robes. They would rise at intervals, for prayer, for chanting, for devotion. They did not see sleep as escape, but as pause, a moment to gather strength. Between acts of care, upright sleeping made it easier to hear, easier to move, to tend, to guard, to protect. And in homes that knew the dark could bring danger, from wolves, from wind, or from the world beyond, being half awake was a comfort. It was a way of holding the night without surrendering to it. Even now you might know this feeling, falling asleep in a chair, near a window, hearing the sounds of your home breathe around you. That sleep is not deep, but it is steady. You are watching, even as your eyes close, just like they did long ago, when the fire dimmed, and the world waited for morning, and the body upright kept quiet watch. And then, as centuries passed, the world began to change. Homes grew warmer, fires burned longer. Rooms were built for sleeping, and only sleeping. Beds grew lower, mattresses softer, pillows plush instead of propping. And slowly, the upright sleeper disappeared. Not all at once, not with a decree, but gently, as habits do. We stopped fearing that sleep would steal us away. We stopped believing the flat bed belonged to the dead, and we learned to lie down, to trust the dark, to sink fully into it. But even now, we still remember. In waiting rooms, on couches, on trains and planes, we drift off upright. Our heads tilt, our shoulders relax, and we return, briefly, to the way our ancestors once dreamed. In a way, that kind of sleep never left. It lingers in old habits, in quiet nights by the fire, in the way we rest before truly sleeping. Not flat, not gone, just pausing, sitting, listening, breathing. So tonight, whether you lie down fully or lean into your pillow, whether you curl or sit or float halfway, know that you are part of something ancient, a chain of sleepers who feared, who healed, who watched, all while sitting still. And now, let the last of this night carry you gently into your own quiet dreams. Sleep well, sit soft, drift slowly. You are not far from them, only a breath away. The world is quiet now. Darkness has settled across the hills. Candles burn low in narrow windows, and behind stone walls, a silence gathers. Inside the monastery, the monks have gone to their cells. Small wooden rooms, no larger than a cupboard. A bed of straw, a robe folded neatly, a single candle flickering with thought. Sleep has come, but not for long. For this is no ordinary night. It is a sacred one, bound not by dreams, but by rhythm, by devotion, and by the voice of a bell. In these early hours, sleep is not a surrender. It is an offering, given willingly and taken back again and again, because the night is filled with prayer, and the bell will return, not to wake the body, but to stir the soul. And so we begin a journey into a night like no other, where the hours belong not to dreams, but to God. Somewhere in the middle of the night, a bell rings, one toll, then another. Its sound echoes through the cloisters, reaching into every narrow cell. The monks stir, not with surprise, but with familiarity. They have risen like this every night for years. Matins has begun. This is the first of many prayers. The night has only just begun. Candles are lit, ropes are tied, hoods pulled forward. Bare feet touch the cold stone. A single door creaks open, and out they go, one by one, into the church, into the dark. In the great hall there is no fire, only flickering flames, and the sound of voices, not loud, not hurried, just slow syllables, rising and falling in ancient patterns, Latin words wrapped in breath. They do not rush, they do not slur. This is prayer in its purest form, given freely in the quiet of night, words floating up into vaulted ceilings and empty rafters. This is not the end of sleep, only an interruption, a pause, a moment to remember why they came here at all. And once the final chant is sung, once the psalms have passed their lips, they return to their beds, to their stillness, to their dreams, until the next bell. Time, in the monastery, was not tolled by clocks, it was sung by bells, and the night was not a stretch of sleep. It was a sequence of sacred hours, matins, lauds, vigils, all marked by sound. A slow toll, a low vibration, a call not to rise, but to remember. The bell did not ask for urgency. It invited surrender. The monks did not wake fully. They stirred. They moved gently. They entered prayer as one might drift through a dream. The night was not broken. It was braided. Moments of stillness, woven with moments of devotion. A sleep not lost, but shaped. Sometimes sleep returned for an hour. Sometimes only minutes. But always the bell would come again. It governed the body, the breath, the dreams. It reminded the soul, this life is not for comfort, but for presence. Tonight, as you listen for your own quiet rhythms, know that long ago, sleep was not full, nor was it fragmented. It was devotional, it was sacred, and every few hours, a bell would ring to lead the weary back to light. The bell has rung, the chants have been sung, and once again, The monastery is silent. The monks step back through narrow halls. Their candles flicker against rough stone. They pass no one. They speak no words. Each returns to his own cell, his own bed, his own little night. But sleep, now, is different. It is not heavy, not long. It does not claim the body. It simply holds it, a rest between calls, a breath between devotions. They lie down with care, still clothed in wool, still wrapped in breath. The straw mattress creaks. The blanket rises with each exhale. They do not toss. They do not turn. Their sleep is still. And in this short return to bed, dreams may come, but they are quiet, fleeting. A flicker of candlelight, a whisper of a hymn, a memory of sunlight across a page. Then, before sleep sinks too deep, they are called again. The bell, it does not startle. It does not shout. It simply returns. This was how monks slept. In intervals, in silence, in rhythm. Their dreams were not broken. They were composed, like the Psalms themselves. Verse, pause, sacred fragments, held in a holy night. The bell rings again, but this time, the sky is beginning to change. It sits still dark, but there sisps something new in the air, cooler, softer, a whisper of light behind the hills. It is time for lauds, the final prayer of the night. The monks rise once more. Their steps are slower now, but still steady. They move through the cloister, wrapped in robes, bound in quiet. The chapel awaits, cold stone, breath clouding faintly in the air. And then, voices, low at first, then rising, not with power, but with purpose. They chant the psalms of praise. Laudate Dominum, praise the Lord, even in the darkness, especially in the darkness. Lauds is not just prayer, it is promise. A ritual that welcomes the light, even before it comes. The monks face east, toward a window where, in time, sunlight will appear. But for now, they watch the dark and sing into it, with trust, with devotion, with still sleepy breath. This is how the night ends, not with alarm, not with rush, but with gratitude, with stillness, with song, a slow return to life and labor, to silence and sunrise. And the body, though tired, is full of peace, because it did not sleep to escape the world, it slept to meet it, more gently. In the monastery, sleep was never meant to be uninterrupted. It was never meant to be long, or deep, or private. It was shaped by something older, stronger, more enduring. The bell that called the body from rest. The bell that reminded the soul to rise, to listen, to speak, to be still. The monks lived their entire lives this way, sleeping not for escape, but for renewal. Each night, interrupted again and again, until the interruptions became the rhythm, until the rhythm became a comfort. Time no longer felt like hours or minutes, but prayer and pause, wake and rest, bell and silence. We may not live this way now. We do not rise to bells. We do not pause in darkness, to chant into the quiet. But still, there are echoes. In the moment before dawn, when the world is silent, when your body stirs without a reason, you are touching something ancient, a kind of sleep that wasn't broken. It was holy. Night falls, and with it, the world slows. The wind eases, the fields hush, and inside cottages across the countryside, people prepare for sleep, but they do not lie down in silence. They do not slip into dreams unguarded. They reach instead for something older, something time-worn and tender. A sprig of lavender, a drop of valerian root, a pouch of herbs tied with thread, a cup of warm ale with spices. Sleep, in the medieval world, didn't come without care. It was coaxed, invited, gently encouraged by hands that knew how. The village healer, or wise woman, might mix a brew. A grandmother might whisper over a bundle of dried flowers. A mother might place a charm beneath her child's pillow. They didn't dare to have pills. or alarms, or blackout curtains. They had scent, warmth, and belief. In this world, sleep was sacred, and it was tended to with ritual and with love. Lavender. Its name hums like a lullaby, its scent like summer wrapped in silk. In the medieval world, this humble purple flower was more than beautiful. It was medicine. It was ritual. It was sleep. Women in long skirts wandered fields at dusk, snipping lavender stalks before the sun fell completely. Bundles were tied with twine, hung in kitchens, over hearths, or in cellars to dry. When night came, it was placed in linen pouches, slipped between folds of bedding, tucked beneath pillows, crushed gently and breathed in before the candle was blown out. The scent calmed the nerves, softened the heart, slowed the world. Even babies, restless from the heat or the cold, were soothed with lavender sachets tied to their cradles. Lavender didn't just help sleep, it protected it. People believed it kept away bad dreams, evil spirits, dark moods, a comfort for the body and the soul. To lie in lavender-scented sheets was to be cradled by the land itself, earth and air, fragrance and faith. Even now, the scent of lavender lingers in many lives. A bath, a tea, a sachet tucked in a drawer, a whisper of the past, still calling us gently towards sleep. So breathe deeply and let the lavender wrap around you, just as it once wrapped those who slept beneath thatched roofs. Long, long ago, not all sleep comes sweet. Some comes bitter, steeped, stirred, drawn from the root. In the quiet corners of the medieval world, healers knew of such things. They would kneel beside the valerian plant, its jagged leaves reaching up, its roots buried deep. And from those roots, twisted and knotted, came one of the oldest gifts to sleep. Valerian. It smelled strong, earthy, sharp, not the perfume of lavender, but something older, deeper. They boiled it gently in pots, let it steep in ale, pressed it into cloth, or crumbled it into wine. To drink valerian was not about taste, it was about trust. For those who lay restless, tossing with sorrow, waking with ache, sighing into the dark, valerian brought stillness. Not all slept easily in the medieval world. Worries didn't wait for daylight, nor did pain, nor did dreams. But the wise ones knew that from the roots of the wild earth, sleep could be coaxed just enough. And so, by firelight, a cup was raised, a bitter draught was sipped, and the body, softened, not rushed into slumber, but led there, gently, one slow breath at a time. Even now, valerian lingers in the shelves of the sleepless, a root with memory, a plant with purpose. Let it remind you, the earth has always known how to rest. The nights were long and cold. Stone floors held the chill. Wool blankets weren't sipped always enough, and the wind slipped through the walls, no matter how tightly they were built. But warmth could be made. In kitchens and corners, hands reached for mugs, and into each cup they poured comfort, warm ale, not drunk for pleasure, but for peace. It simmered in small pots over low flames, steeped with herbs, chamomile, rosemary, a pinch of sage. Sometimes a spoonful of honey was stirred in, or a shaving of nutmeg, or a few cloves. The smell was deep, herbal, sweet and spiced, like sleep itself, made drinkable. This was more than a nightcap. It was a signal to the body. Its steps time to slow, to soften, to let go. Children were given a few warm sips. Elders wrapped their hands around the mugs. Travelers thawed beside the hearth, breathing in the steam. Even monks, on cold nights, were known to warm their bones with herbal brew. Tonight, perhaps you too know that ritual. A warm drink before bed. A moment to hold something steady, to sip slowly, and feel the heat move through you. It sips not just tradition, it sips memory of nights once soothed by warmth, by herbs, and by hands that knew how to help others sleep, even with lavender on the pillow and warm ale in the belly. Sleep didn't set always feel safe, for in the night, things stirred, not just worries or memories, but spirits, curses, bad dreams. So people reached for more than herbs. They reached for charms. Some were simple: a silver coin under the pillow, a wooden cross beside the bed, a carved rune at the window. Others were whispered, soft prayers, passed down from mothers to daughters, fathers to sons. Keep away the nightmare. They sit, say, guard this sleep. Let no shadow enter. Bundles were tied with red thread, filled with protective herbs, rue, mugwort, fennel. Pouches were hung at the bedsip's head, symbols etched into door frames, salt sprinkled beneath windows. These were not grand gestures. They were everyday ones. Small acts of hope, of caution, of care. People believed sleep was a journey, and that journeys needed protection. And so, as you settle in tonight, perhaps imagine your own charm. A thought, a word, a quiet feeling of safety pressed beneath your pillow. Let it guard you. Let it calm you, as it once did, for those who slept under straw roofs, stone walls, and starry skies. The fire has burned low. The mug is empty. The sachets lie still beneath the pillow. Night has settled fully now, not in fear, but in peace. And all around you, the old ways breathe. Not loudly, not brightly, but gently. Lavender still scents the edge of many dreams. Valerian still curls through herbal teas. Warm drinks still cradle tired hands. And charms, though quieter now, still exist. In your habits, in your hopes, in your little ways of making sleep feel safe. The people of the past didn't ask for perfect sleep. They asked for comfort, for softness, for enough. They asked to be held by the night, not lost in it. And so they made it welcoming, with herbs, with warmth, with whispered words, and with a quiet understanding that rest must be invited in. Tonight, as you lie down, you may feel that same instinct, to light a candle, to sip something warm, to scent the room with something sweet or familiar. That is memory. That is ritual. That is the echo of 1,000 quiet midnights and 1,000 careful hands. The house was warm, too warm. The hearth never fully cooled. The air was heavy with smoke, sweat, and straw dust. And beneath the sheets, there was movement. Tiny ones. Fleas, lice, itches that danced beneath the skin. So when summer came, and the winds softened, some people stepped outside, not to wander, not to work, but to sleep. Outside, the earth was cooler. The grass held a hush. The night air brushed skin like water. Yes, there were dangers. Foxes, drunks, ghosts, some said. But still, the pull of cool air, of fresh sky, of distance from crawling things. It was strong. And so they dragged their blankets to the fields, to the barns, to rooftops and gardens. And there they slept. Inside, the bed waited. But it was no paradise. Mattresses were sacks of straw, rough, uneven, noisy with every turn. Sheets were rarely washed. Blankets shared between many. And what else shared that bed? Fleas, lice, mice beneath the boards. You didn't sleep alone, even when no one else was there. In crowded homes, entire families lay pressed together. Grandparents, children, sometimes strangers. One room, one bed, one long, heavy breath. The hearth made it warm, too warm. The thatch above trapped smoke. The animals below added their own scent. It was sleep, but it wasn't set peaceful. And when summer came, with its open skies and its promise of cooler air, the bed no longer felt like safety. It felt like a trap. So some simply stepped out, onto porches, into barns, onto the packed earth, wrapped in linen and hope. The trouble with beds, they say, isn't it just the bugs? It sets the walls, the way they close in, the way the night air can touch your skin, the way your dreams feel boxed in too. And so, to escape the itch, the heat, the closeness, They walked outside and lay beneath the stars, because sometimes the worst place to sleep was the one they were supposed to. They didn't always go far, just far enough. Some stepped out their doors and lay beside them, wrapped in a cloak, head on a bundled tunic. Others crossed the yard to the barn, where hay was piled high, and the scent of animals was better than the smell of beds. In the fields, they curled beside walls, behind hedges, beneath carts left from harvest. No roof, but enough sky to soften the soul. In cities it was the poor who slept outside, on steps, under bridges, beneath the jut of a shop-sipped awning. In villages, it was choice. In towns, often necessity. But either way, the ground cradled the back, the breeze cooled the brow, and the stars, even just a sliver, whispered comfort. The barn was the favourite, warm from animals, dry from rain, and full of soft, rustling straw. Couples curled close there. Children snuck out in secret to escape the snores and heat. Even landowners, on especially hot nights, might lay on the grass beside their homes, just for a few hours of still air. They knew the risks, but they also knew the rewards. And in that moment, lying beneath nothing but night, the body could finally breathe. The stars watched kindly. The breeze was gentle, the ground cool and forgiving. But the night wasn't always kind. There were reasons most people stayed inside, and those who didn't knew the dangers. In the countryside, there were wolves. They kept to the forests, usually, but sometimes, in hunger or madness, they wandered near. And foxes, while not dangerous, could startle the sleep from anyone. Then there were humans, thieves, wanderers, drunk men with no sense of where they were going. A person asleep in the open was a person exposed, and in some places, they feared more than flesh and fur. They feared spirits. The dead, they believed, didn't always rest, especially those who had died suddenly, or without prayer. There were charms to ward them off, symbols scratched into door frames, herbs placed at the corners of a blanket, but out in the open, there was little to hide behind. And so, many who slept beneath the stars did so with one eye half open, with a knife tucked under a blanket, with a prayer murmured until sleep pulled them under. Still, they returned, despite the stories, despite the risks, because sometimes the fear of a bad dream was less than the itch of fleas or the weight of stale air. Sleep is always a choice, a risk, a hope, and under the stars, it was a risk some were willing to take. They didn't sleep in complete darkness. Not always. Beside them, a fire, small, tended carefully, fed with twigs and branches gathered before dusk. It wasn't for cooking, or light, or storytelling. It was for watching, and being watched, a promise of safety. In the shadows of the night, the fire kept away animals. Its scent disguised the smell of sleeping humans. Its light frightened the curious, beast or man. And more than that, it gave the night a rhythm, a glow that rose and fell, like breath, like a guardian. But fires needed tending, so someone stayed awake. An elder, a child with nervous energy, a watchful traveller. They sit wrapped in wool, eyes blinking slowly, stirring the coals, listening, waiting. Even in sleep, others would sense it. That flicker behind closed eyes, that warmth near the feet. It made rest feel possible, even under the sky, even without walls. Because the fire, quiet and constant, promised that the world had not gone completely dark. Tonight, if you ever left on a lamp, a night light, a candle in the corner, you understand. The fire wasn't just warmth. It was presence. A silent friend that stayed awake, so others could rest. And then, there was the sky. The real reason some people chose to sleep outside. Yes, it was cooler. Yes, there were fewer fleas. Yes, the air was clean. But there was also that vast, star-pricked ceiling that no home could match. They lay on blankets, or on hay, or simply on the earth, and above them, 1,000 stories, constellations, moon phases, shooting stars. Some believed the sky was a book, others a spirit, a watchful god, but all who slept beneath it felt something, calmer, smaller, more held. Even in fear, there was awe. Even in cold, there was wonder. Some said sleep came faster, under the stars. Some said dreams were clearer, and others simply said they liked to wake and see the sky waiting, quiet, endless, patient. Tonight, you may sleep inside, but part of you still remembers the field, the barn, the hush of the fire, and the open arms of the night. Close your eyes, breathe deep, and let the stars hang quietly over your dreams. You are safe, you are small, and you are part of the oldest sleep there ever was. Beneath the open sky, night has fallen over the castle. The great hall grows quiet, torches dim, footsteps fade, and high above, behind carved doors and thick tapestries, a different world awakens. The bedchamber, not just a room, but a ritual, a stage set for sleep. Here, the nobility did not simply rest. They were prepared for rest. Servants entered first. Candles were lit. The fire was stoked. Blankets warmed, and scents of rosewater and herbs drifted through the air. The bed itself stood tall, a towering structure of wood, carved with vines and beasts and coats of arms. Feather mattresses were fluffed, silk sheets smoothed, furs laid out for warmth, velvets folded, just so. This was not sleep. This was ceremony, and it began long before the eyes ever closed. To lie in a noble bed was to lie in a cloud, but a cloud stitched by hands, stuffed with feathers, and hemmed in gold. First the mattress, heavy with goose down, layered atop ropes that had been pulled tight and retied each week. Then came the sheets, linen, pale and clean, washed by hand in scented water. Some were kissed with lavender, others with rose. Above the sheets, furs, deer, sable, ermine for the very richest, not for hunting now, but for heat. Then came the coverlets, velvets embroidered with flowers, silks from across seas, heavy damasks stitched with thread so fine it shimmered in candlelight. Pillows were stacked high, some for resting the head, others to lean upright while reading by firelight. Each layer was arranged with care. Each fold was straightened, each scent measured, because this wasn't set, just comfort. It was status. Sleep was a kind of wealth. To lie in this bed was not simply to close one's sip's eyes. It was to enter a world of softness few would ever feel. And the weight of that warmth held you, pressed you into peace. Tonight, as you settle under your own layers, let your mind imagine it. The down, the fur, the faint perfume of rosewater on linen. A bed not just for sleep, but for dreaming before dreams even begin. Long before the noble closed their eyes, others moved through the room. Servants, chambermaids, valets and pages, each with a quiet task. They came with warm water in silver bowls for the washing of feet. They laid out linen nightshirts, freshly pressed. Slippers were turned toward the bed. Jewels were placed in velvet boxes, robes folded, just so. One servant would test the bed, checking the ropes, beating the pillows, smoothing the silks. Another would stoke the fire one last time, so that the embers would last till morning. If it was winter, they might warm bricks by the flame and place them under furs to chase away the chill. If it was summer, windows were unlatched and fans made of feathers placed nearby. Each night, the scene was the same, and always, wordless. They moved like shadows. They watched the candlelight. They bowed low and backed away. And once all was set, once every need had been seen to, they disappeared, leaving only warmth and stillness, and the quiet pride of a task completed. As the noble climbed into bed, they did so never alone. Even if the room emptied, the labour lingered. So tonight, Think of the hands that once folded every edge, the fire stoked just for you, the comfort arranged, quietly, lovingly, by someone else. Once the robes were changed, once the servants had gone, there came a quieter hour still, the hour of rest, of reflection, of sacred solitude. For the rich, sleep was not taken lightly. It was invited, and before it arrived, they turned to ritual, a prayer whispered in Latin, a psalm softly spoken, a hand resting gently on a rosary. Some kept prayer books beside their beds, illuminated pages with golden borders, worn from nightly use. Others read tales, romances, legends, dreams spun into parchment and ink, and still others sat for long moments, simply gazing into the fire, letting the mind soften, like wax. They believed sleep to be a bridge between the body and the spirit, a place where dreams might carry visions, or warnings, or grace. So it mattered how one entered it, clean in soul, quiet in mind, prepared to drift not into nothingness, but into something beyond the veil of wakefulness. Tonight, you may close your eyes in silence, or you may think a single kind thought, or imagine a page turning gently in candlelight. Whatever your ritual, let it be soft, let it be yours. And like the nobility of old, let your dreams arrive, not rushed, but welcomed. This was not just a bedroom, it was a chamber, a sanctuary, a place apart from the noise of courts and servants and daily business. It was where the noble washed, dressed, whispered, waited, and slept, but only after the day sip's last rituals were complete. Tapestries lined the walls, woven with scenes of forests, saints, and battles. They were not just decoration, they held warmth and stories. Furniture stood close, a writing desk, a carved chest, a chair with high arms and deep shadows. Sometimes a pet lay curled by the hearth, a small dog, a cat with clever eyes, and always, silence grew thicker in the room, as the candles burned low. The bed was the heart, but the chamber was the shell, a world within walls, safe, private, wrapped in the hush of wealth and stone. Here, noble secrets were spoken. Here, letters were read. Here, lovers leaned close. Here, power slept. Even sleep had presence. Tonight, whatever space you call your own, small or grand, let it be a chamber. Let it hold your rituals, your warmth, your hush, and like those who came before, let it become your world for just one night more. The candles are out. Only the hearth glows now, low and steady. The sheets are drawn high. The furs lie heavy. The body no longer holds tension. The mind no longer holds thought. At last, sleep comes. They slept still, as if painted, backs straight or curled on one side, pillows supporting head and shoulder, hands folded or resting open, as if holding a dream. The bed, tall and wide, held them like a cradle. The curtains closed around them, like a secret. And all through the night, nothing moved, except breath and time. Outside, the castle stood watchful. Guards walked the walls. Torches flickered in the halls. But within the bedchamber, stillness, the kind of stillness only the rich could afford, blanketed in wool, velvet, feather, and silence. Sleep as a luxury, sleep as ceremony, sleep as safety. And now, dear listener, let your own night unfold the same. Layer by layer, let warmth gather. Let silence settle. Let the world narrow to one soft breath, and a pillow just for you. Tonight, you may not sleep in a castle, but still, you may rest like royalty, softly, fully, and with no need to hurry. The hour is late. The hush has arrived. Sleep well. Good night.